Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Starting at 9 o'clock a.m. New Zealand time. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All right. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. What is wisdom and where does it come from? What do you think? What is wisdom and where does it come from? Living the Bhagavad Gita. Starting in 3 minutes. And if you're here already, let us know on chat. Hare Krishna. Starting in 1 minute. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. and welcome again to our ongoing adventure of learning how to live the Bhagavad Gita. Self-realization applied in our everyday life by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Today we're studying Bhagavad Gita as it is second chapter, continuing. Contents of the Gita summarized, text number 51. And happy Ekadashi, by the way, at least in New Zealand and maybe also wherever you are. Chant some Jai Radha Madhava first, and then go into the Sanskrit word meanings, translation, and purport, following in the footsteps of our divine, beloved founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jasoda Nandana Pradjana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Gauranitai. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Radha, Giridhari Radha, Giridhari Radhe, Radha Giridhari Radha, Giridhari Radhe, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Nitya Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitya Gaur Hari Bo, Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitya Gaura Hari Bo. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajacharya Astatara Satashri Shrimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajacharya Astatara Satashri Shrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Guru Parampara Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prem Skaho, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna, Gopi Gopinath, Shama Kunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev Ki Jai, Shri Shri Harigiridhari Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Continuing in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, text number 51. If you have it, hard copy with you or on your device, please repeat after me. And if you don't, do your best to just hear and repeat. Karma jambudi yuktaha yuktahi. Karma jambudi yuktahi. Palam tyakva manishina. Palam tyakva manishina. Janma bandha vinir mukta. Janma Banda Vinir Mukta Padam Gachan Jananmayam Anamayam Padma Gachan Jana Anamayam Padma Gachan Janamayam Karma Jambudi Yukta Hi Palam Tyakva Manishina Janma Bandha Vinir Mukta Padam Gachan Janamayam. Please repeat the word meanings after me. Karma Jam, because of fruitive activities. Buddhi Yukta, being done in devotional service. He, certainly. Palam, results. Tyakpa, giving up. Manishina, devotees who are great sages. Janmabandha, the bondage of birth and death. Vinir Mukta, liberated souls. Padam, position. Gachanti, reach. Anamayam, without miseries. So please share something, let us know you're here, and we can be more personal in our exchange and make it livelier, more realized, and applied, rather than just going through the motions. Of course, hearing and chanting is perfect. It isn't necessarily just going through the motions. But if we exchange with each other, then we can support each other, and there is reciprocation, and that relationship, that reciprocation brings it more to life and helps us to be more conscious. Whatever level we're on, we can share transcendental sound vibration without any consideration of what level we are on, whether we can understand what level we're on ourselves or not. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Prabhupada. The wise, engaged in devotional service, take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. Please repeat. The wise engaged in devotional service take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. Report. The liberated living entities seek that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam says, Samashvitaye parapalavaplavam mahat padam punya yasho murare bhavam buddhir vatsa padam param padam yadvit padam nate sham. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 58. Quote, for one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti, mukti, liberation. The ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoofprint. Not much water. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. End quote. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance, only less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely birth, death, old age, and diseases, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets. I'll repeat that. One who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness, and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself, and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. At once, Prabhupada says. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschata Disatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lankayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Srigaram Dinatarinam. By the mercy of the spiritual master, a lame man can cross over mountains, and a dumb man can compose eloquent poetry. Karmajam Buddhi Yuktahi Palam Chakta Manishina Janma Bandha Vinir Mukta Padam Gachan Janamayam. The wise, engaged in devotional service, take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. Prabhupada continues, as he always has, is, and will be, enlightening us about reality distinguished from illusion. This is the purpose of human life, to become crystal clear about what reality is and what illusion is, and to act in such a way that we live in the reality. We live reality by giving up the illusion. And you might say, first there's acceptance, then there's action, then there's actualization. AAA. So Prabhupada, he begins the purport by describing what liberated living entities do. They seek that place where there are no material miseries. And it seems to me that he's equating those who are described in the very beginning of Krishna's, this verse, that Krishna is speaking, the wise. So it seems like Prabhupada is equating the wise with liberated living entities. Wise people, realized people, those who have real wisdom. And I've entitled this particular discussion, what is wisdom and where does it come from? What is wisdom and where does it come from? So Prabhupada's giving us a clear understanding of what wisdom means or what it is. And it's as I said, we accept that this world is temporary, illusory, and miserable, whether we fully realize that or not. We accept theoretically or in realization that God exists. We accept there's so many levels and types of acceptance, there's so many combinations of them. So we may accept one of them, or some of them, or all of them, or some combination of them. I accept that I'm not this body. I accept that I'm eternal spirit soul, eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of God. I accept that Krishna is God, that he's my best friend, that he's proprietor of all, controlling proprietor of all universes, planetary systems and universes, and every grain of sand on any of them, in any of them. And he is the supreme enjoyer and benefactor. So we accept that we're foolish. I accept that I'm a fool. I accept that I'm avoiding Krishna. I accept that perfection of life is to surrender to Krishna. So many things. We start with acceptance, whether we understand or not. Prabhupada says very clearly in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita that even one theoretically understands or accepts Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he or she can understand Krishna. So the wise, they act in a certain way, and Prabhupada is describing that here. The liberated living entities, the wise, liberated living entities, they seek that place. So those who have realized, who are actually wise, wisdom is more than just theoretical knowledge. Obviously, as I mentioned, we may accept something theoretically, but It has to become realized. And Prabhupada says, even knowing you're not the body, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm eternal spirit soul. That's great, but it's not enough. We have to apply that, live as living as spiritual beings, understanding our relationship with Krishna and his relationship with us, and acting accordingly. So Prabhupada makes it very clear that it's interesting. Sometimes when people say, well, what is self-realization? Self-realization, Prabhupada explains, means to know oneself and to know God, to know Krishna. And God realization means to know God and oneself. It seems like there's some contradiction there or limitation there, but Prabhupada says clearly in this purport, one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is saying that if I understand my real constitutional position as an eternal soul, automatically I know the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because if I understand myself, then I know I'm a servant. I'm eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the primeval Lord, was playing on his flute, attracting hundreds, thousands, millions of gopis, and Lakshmi's goddesses of fortune. Then the two can't be separated. If I really know myself, I must know Krishna, because myself doesn't exist without connection, without relationship, without dependence, without connection to that Supreme Lord. And if I understand the Supreme Lord, I understand everything about him, which includes me. So God realization leads to self-realization. They're synonymous in that sense. Self-realization includes God realization. And Prabhupada says further, to know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. And in the teachings of the Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada puts it very nicely on page 16 of the introduction, teachings of the Lord Chaitanya. He says that our first business is to know Krishna and to know our relationship with Krishna. To know Krishna is to know oneself. So he's saying to know Krishna is to know oneself. They go together. They can't be disconnected. And to know oneself means to know one's relationship with Krishna. And then he goes on to explain what is our relationship with Krishna. He talks about the three deities, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath. So it's very, it was a question for me before. When I say self-realization, what is that in relation? Self-realization, how does that relate to God realization? And God realization, how does that relate to self-realization? So Prabhupada says they're one. Different aspects in one complete whole. So the wise are those who have become liberated. And we should also understand that being wise means to learn how to become liberated. Whether we're in kindergarten or we're in PhD program, we're progressively learning on the learning ladder. Doesn't matter what level we're on. At the same time, we understand the result of our endeavor to advance, to keep learning, means that we will be liberated. And liberation isn't even the ultimate goal. The ultimate liberation, the ultimate goal is to love Krishna. And that includes all liberation. And Prabhupada talks about how for neophytes, following regular principles, rising early, attending Mangalarti, bathing regularly, hearing, chanting, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing with other devotees, engaging in service, offering our food. All these we might call ritualistic or basic regulative principles are required for neophytes. At the same time, when one becomes advanced, especially wise or liberated, those aren't necessarily required. Then it becomes natural. Automatically we serve. We don't need rules and regulations because we're fully committed, enthusiastically, constantly engaged in service. Now, if Prabhupada talks about in the next paragraph of the purport, he says, owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Now, we may accept that this world is temporary and miserable, but how does that manifest in reality in our daily moment to moment lives? And we can test this, because if my attraction or attachment to material things, just consider, how much am I attracted to mundane literature, mundane activities, mundane relationships, sensual gratification? How much am I attracted? And that from that we can understand how much we are ignoring the reality. And Prabhupada he talks about that here, because ignorance means to ignore. We accept the material covering, we accept Maya, we accept the material illusion to some extent. That requires that we ignore the reality that it is illusion, and it's empty, and it causes misery. I don't want misery, and yet somehow, because I ignore Krishna's teachings, the reality, and particularly applying it more and more strictly in my life, I suffer. That's my choice. Human life is a life of responsibility, Prabhupada says. So we always have the choice. Now, that may take some time and some practice. And that's the process of Bhakti Yoga. Chanting Hare Krishna regularly, ultimately at least 16 rounds a day, and following the regular principles. So Prabhupada describes that the chanting in that first happening album that he recorded, our chanting is like the genuine cry of the child for its mother. Genuine cry. So we should be crying out with greed, with lolium, with enthusiasm, with desperation. Krishna, I keep wallowing in this ignoring the reality that this is a place where there is danger in every step of life. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham, Bhagavatam says. one who's accepted the abode of the lotus feet of the Lord, he seeks the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, Parampadam, as his goal. Not the place where there's danger in every step. So there's danger in every step in life. And what is the greatest danger? Is to forget who we are and to risk taking material birth again. That's the greatest risk. Someone may say, well, it's COVID, or it's the terrorists, or it's the government, or it's the taxpayer, or it's my mind, or it's the poor weather. It's cold, it's too hot. Like the weather up here in Fungi is changing. It's been quite chilly. Even at night now, it's still quite chilly. But in the daytime, like now, it's getting very warm. And yesterday it was so hot. It's t-shirt weather for me, which takes quite a bit of warming up. So this example, it makes it very crystal clear. So when we notice our attractions, we can look at our own attractions, whatever they may be, even to spacing out, to blobbing in whatever form that may take. That's a symptom of our own ignoring the reality. So we don't want to be beat ourselves up about it, engage in self-flagellation. But if we understand it, then we can, if we accept it first, as I said, we first accept, then we act. So whether we understand it very deeply or not, we can engage in service, which is like this, hearing and chanting. I'm asking you to discuss or to share or to bring up any question or comment. Anytime. Whether I respond right away or not, we'll see. But to engage, to look, seek association that enlivens us. Not necessarily forcing ourselves or being so negative about ourselves that we're not doing what we should, but allowing ourselves to find ways that we can be more engaged, more like what do you like doing? What's fun for you? Do that and do it for Krishna. Learn how to do it for Krishna. At least do it alongside more and more Krishna conscious activity, because the taste, the attraction, the attachment for that particular less spiritual or mundane activity will become less and less and less. In fact, when you become really busy in what you love doing for Krishna, there won't be much, if any, time for that anymore. And then we can see, oh, I don't want to give that up. Okay. At least we can be honest that we're choosing that. So Prabhupada talks about that, ignorance, and that means ignoring. Out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that resultant actions will make them happy. We think that by acting in the material platform, the result of that action or those actions will be satisfying, make us happy. But they do not know, Prabhupada says, that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. So we may think, well, I'm not completely happy now, but I'm going to develop in this body, or maybe go to the heavenly planets. I'll keep adjusting, keep doggedly arranging, because I'm convinced we haven't. even though theoretically we've accepted that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, or the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hopefully I will come to the point of accepting that I'm a fool because I'm ignoring. I'm choosing to ignore. I'm choosing to be in ignorance. I'm a fool. So that's a good mentality. Not in a demeaning way, but in the sense of I'm choosing to see the illusion, to accept the illusion that I'm accepting. Accepting that the illusion I'm accepting is illusion. Accepting that it is illusion, and therefore that I'm a fool. Lord Chaitanya said it himself. He said, my spiritual master said I'm a fool, and I should not study the Vedas, discuss the Vedas. I should just chant Hare Krishna. And he said, then as soon as I chant, I feel I'm filled with great ecstasy, bliss, and realization. So any questions or comments so far? Please support me. Please help me with your comments, with your thoughts, with your realizations, or your inspiration, or your doubts. It's all wonderful that way. So what is wisdom? Wisdom is to actively apply and understand the distinction between reality and illusion. And realized wisdom actually means realized. So we have on the material plane, we have mundane book knowledge, theoretical knowledge, facts, figures, data, like that, which has become so prominent in the world today. I heard Elon Musk describing how as AI, artificial intelligence, becomes more and more advanced, and it's already to some extent there, you'll have, or they do have, so-called robots. Yeah, robots who can speak like a human being. They seem to express emotions like a real human being. And eventually, if not already, you could be speaking to a robot on the other end of the telephone or the whatever, and you couldn't tell any difference between, you couldn't tell whether it was a robot or a real human being. Couldn't tell. So Elon Musk was warning us about this, because he says if it may be developed, and maybe it is being developed with good intentions, but the concern is, the fear is, that it may be used by unscrupulous people. And we've seen that happen in recent history. So many weapons, the atomic bomb. Oh yes, we can develop atomic energy and power the whole world without depleting the resources of nature, the oil, or the coal, or the wood, whatever it is. And yet the powers that be use those nuclear weapons as a way to threaten and dominate and control other less so-called advanced peoples or nations. And at one point, Prabhupada said, they have the nuclear weapons, they will use them. just like germ warfare or poisonous gas warfare. It was used in World War II. So the concern is not that knowledge is not good, but it depends on how it's going to be used. And unfortunately, because the world today is controlled by materialistic, selfish, atheistic demons, then we know what will happen. If they have that AI facility, which is rapidly becoming reality, and in many ways has already become reality, it can be misused, and human beings will become second-class citizens, and the human potential, the human aspiration for spiritual advancement could be squashed. Whether that can happen or not, whether it will happen, depends on you and me. How we accept, act, and actualize Krishna consciousness. How well we accept it and then act upon it so that we can give it up, give up the material life, material activity, karmic activity, fruit of activity, sense gratification, by realizing, by experiencing. This is where wisdom comes from. Because if we have book knowledge, that's one thing. It remains intellectual, theoretical, ethereal, mental. But if we apply it, then we have experience what works and what doesn't work in terms of quality of life, peacefulness, being comfortable in our own skins, being confident and effective in helping others to do the same thing. Prabhupada was perfectly realized. He was completely comfortable and confident. And he was most perfect and most pleasing to Krishna because he gave Krishna to the world. He gave Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga, devotional service to the world. Prabhupada describes at the end of the purport, but one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, he at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. And that's indicated, Prabhupada's taking that from the Sanskrit, the original Sanskrit. Buddhi Yukta, being done in devotional service. Buddhi Yoga. And Karma Jam, because of fruit of activities, or by doing the fruit of activities, karma, in devotion, in service to Krishna, it becomes called Karma Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service. So we study Bhagavad Gita, we read these verses, and we learn how to live them, how to incorporate them into our daily and moment-to-moment activity, actions, behavior. So am I conscious of when I'm spacing out? It is the natural quality of the soul to be aware. Just like it's the natural quality of the soul to be happy, to be free, to be full of knowledge. Sat chit, to be aware. It's natural for the soul to be happy and full of knowledge. So to do anything else, like space out or be daydreaming about anything other than Krishna consciousness, that is aware. To be aware of that is part of self-realization. So how we respond, when I realize how often I space out and think about something other than Krishna's service, then I get to choose what to do with that. I can be either negative and discourage myself, be down on myself and discourage myself, which isn't going to help. Or I can realize, wow, I'm seeing more and more how fallen, how spaced out, how devious I am. That is a symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sometimes we think, oh, I'm suffering now more than I ever suffered before without Krishna. So why should I continue in Krishna? Someone may consider, or the mind may say, why continue in Krishna consciousness if I'm suffering? It's not more suffering, it's just we're becoming aware of our ignorance, of our illusion. And therefore our continued suffering. We can take it as a negative impetus, as an encouragement. I'm becoming more aware of how far I am from Krishna. I'm becoming more aware of my own reality. So doubt or negativity is negativity in the sense of understanding how far I am from Krishna, how foolish or selfish I am. That's valuable. We can take that as encouragement. What do you think? Sounds strange? Take seeing our foolishness as encouragement? What do you think? So many questions come up. And if questions come up, that's another value. I remember when I first joined joined Prabhupada's mission in Amsterdam, 1970. Well, the end of 1970. I didn't have any questions. In fact, every time I heard devotees say something or read some of Prabhupada's books, I thought, I felt, I didn't really realize it, but it was like, I knew this already. It's already there because it was already there. And it's just like it's being brought out now. The devotees repeating what Prabhupada says or reading his books. Bringing out what's there already. I didn't have questions. Now, as I become more aware of how far I am from Krishna, more questions arise. And because of the purification of chanting and endeavoring to serve the servants, serve Srila Prabhupada and his servants, the cleansing has given me greater insight and understanding of what I have read many times before and didn't see, or aspects of it, or the next level. That's the magic of Prabhupada's word and his books. There's always something more there, because the process of self-realization and Krishna consciousness is ever expanding. There's no end to it. So we can we can expect to see more every time we read. We can expect to see more, to understand more when we discuss with like-minded, especially more advanced devotees. We can expect to get that. Look for it. and become eager for it. So I'll read the verse again. And if there are any questions or comments, please do share. We're needing your questions, comments, realizations, doubts, inspirations. Text 51 of chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, contents of the Gita summarized. The wise, engaged in devotional service, take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. Free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action, by giving up the right to ignore, giving up the right to ignore. Krishna gives us that right. He gives us the ability, not necessarily right, but to ignore the reality. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. And we're all looking for that. Over to you. In another couple of minutes. Any discussion? If you want to have any of the recordings of the Bhagavad Gita discussions, I have them. Zoom saves them very clearly and easily. And if you ever wanted them, let me know. And just send me an email and I can send them to you. And if you have questions about them after you listen to the recording, you can contact me. And see about discussing it further. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.